The air was thick with the scent of blooming herbs as I trudged through the dense underbrush, my heart heavy like a stone. I was David, a merchant in the enchanted forest of where magic flowed freely and dreams often whispered through the trees. Emma, my wife, had always been the light in these woods for me. Her hands, soft and healing, soothed the wounds I carried from my travels. Our home stood on the edge of the forest, a cozy cottage with a garden that seemed to grow by magic every night. The first rays of dawn would find us sitting together at the kitchen table, Emma's hands moving over the leaves as she prepared our morning potions, and mine poring over trade agreements. It was a life I never thought could be anything but perfect. But then came the letter, a single piece of parchment, sealed with a crimson wax that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As I read it aloud in front of her, Emma's face fell like the leaves of autumn under a sudden frost. The words were written by an old friend from my youth, now estranged and bitter. He claimed that he had heard whispers of our marriage's cracks, of unspoken tensions that only began to surface after our first child was born. It wasn't the content of his letter that tore us apart, it was how we responded. Emma's eyes darkened with a mix of resentment and betrayal. She accused me of neglecting her in favor of my business deals, of not understanding what she had sacrificed for this life. Her words cut deep, each one a knife slicing through the fabric of our love. Days turned into weeks as I watched her retreat further into herself. The once vibrant healer had lost her luster, her smile dimming like the last embers of a dying fire. Our arguments became more frequent and more heated, each word a brick in the wall that began to form between us. The forest around us seemed to echo our growing silence, as if even nature itself was distancing itself from our failing marriage. I tried to salvage what we had, kneeling at her feet to apologize, offering to make things right no matter how much it cost me. But there was a coldness in her eyes that I could not warm with my words or actions. Each night, as I lay beside an empty bed, the silence felt like chains binding me to the past, unable to find release. In this enchanted forest where magic once seemed to hold all answers, now only questions remained. The letter had become a catalyst for change, but it was change that neither of us could embrace without pain. As winter's chill began to settle over, so did an air of foreboding in my heart, foreshadowing the uncertainty of our future. In the next chapter, I will explore how David's journey through this turmoil leads him to confront his own feelings and seek a new path forward, whether it be together or apart. The first snowflakes of winter fell softly on, cloaking the forest in a pristine, glistening blanket that seemed to mirror David's own world, cold and starkly divided. He stood by the window of his cottage, watching the world transform outside with a somber gaze, his thoughts heavy with unresolved emotions. Emma had left him behind, her footsteps fading into the distance as she walked away from their home, leaving only a trail of tears behind. The silence in the house was oppressive, heavier than the weight of winter. David's heart ached at the memory of how they used to stand together, hand in hand, facing every challenge that came their way. As he pondered his next move, an old friend approached him on one of the rare days when the forest was still whispering secrets rather than being hushed by the cold winds. It was James, a mage who had been estranged from David since childhood but whom he trusted deeply. Over a cup of herbal tea, James shared some advice that resonated with David's current state. "David," James began, his voice gentle yet firm, "have you truly considered what lies beyond this path? Emma may be hurt and distant now, but she still holds the key to your heart. Have you really let go of her completely?" David sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I tried everything, apologizing, offering to make amends, but she's too far gone. The cracks between us are too deep." James nodded understandingly. Sometimes it takes distance for a couple to truly see the depth of their feelings and the reasons behind those cracks. Have you ever considered taking your own journey? Explore what it means to be alone, to rediscover who you are without her by your side. The idea was unsettling but compelling. David had always been driven by his business and family obligations. Perhaps this winter offered an opportunity for self-reflection. He decided to take a day to walk the paths away from the confines of their home. As he wandered deeper into the woods, he encountered other travelers and inhabitants who shared stories of love, loss, and redemption. Each tale reminded him that even in the darkest times, there was always a way forward, though not necessarily together. David's heart began to open up, slowly but surely, as if the winter chill was thawing his soul. Upon returning home, he found Emma waiting for him outside, her resolve softened by the passage of time. They spoke at first in quiet tones, each word like a tentative step on new ground. Emma admitted that she had been wrong to push away the past and refused to let their arguments define their future. Together, they decided to seek reconciliation, not as before, but with a newfound understanding. In the heart of winter, David realized that sometimes, letting go was not about ending a relationship, but starting anew. With Emma by his side, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope for the future. The forest, once so full of uncertainty, now whispered promises of healing and growth. As dawn broke on what would be a new beginning, David and Emma stepped outside their cottage hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The path had led them not only through winter's chill, but also towards a clearer understanding of each other and themselves. In the end, it was not about finding an answer, but embracing the journey of self-discovery and love that awaited them both.